And we are live, and a very good morning on this Monday morning afternoon. And what a start to the week we've had in sensational development down under in Australia. Now, remember, this is the case that we had been following on sports today for some time now. The entire saga between Novak Djokovic, the world number one in tennis, and his participation at the Australian Open. And the latest news, I'm going to give you a lot of backgrounder, what has really happened in the case so far. But the big news at the moment, and the big breaking news at the moment, is that the federal court has overturned, Novak Djokovic's visa cancellation. Remember, he was in a detention hotel in Melbourne for the last 4 days. And when the case came up for hearing this Monday, Judge Kelly, who was in charge of looking after this case, has sensationally overturned it. And the latest is the government's decision to cancel Novak Djokovic's visa has been sensationally overturned by the court. Now, that's the latest development that we're getting from Melbourne. Just to quickly update you with what had happened, remember there was a hearing in the first half, and that's when the judge heard both sides of the argument. The government, which was fighting Novak Djokovic's participation at the Australian Open, their lawyers had argued that he did not have the desired paperwork or the desired reasons by which he should be given that vaccination exemption and take part in the Australian Open. However, Novak Djokovic's lawyers were arguing that whatever was told to him by Tennis Australia, he did that, he complied by that. And there was an indication in the morning hearing itself when the judge said, what more could Novak Djokovic had done? Has he not complied by everything that was asked of him by Tennis Australia? That in itself was an indication that the verdict was going to be in favor of Novak Djokovic. Of course, they broke for lunch in the courtroom in Melbourne. They resumed after lunch, and immediately after that, the judge has decided that he should be freed from that detention ASAP, and Novak Djokovic should be allowed to play in the Australian Open. Just to sum up, the latest news at the moment is that the federal circuit court judge Anthony Kelly has ordered the immediate release of tennis world number one Novak Djokovic from immigration detention after overturning the federal government's decision to cancel his visa. Remember, he had come with a valid visa, but upon his arrival in Australia, the government had really put him in the detention center, saying that he doesn't have the necessary exemption needed, the vaccine exemption needed to enter the country. Judge Kelly told the hearing a short time ago that the decision to cancel the temporary visa was to be quashed, and the respondent, being the Minister for Home Affairs, to pay his costs and to take all necessary steps to release the applicant immediately. So that's the latest news at the moment. I'm going to read your comments. Just give me a second to answer this phone as well, but keep sending your comment and I'll try and reply. Right then. So that's the latest development. And while I speak to you digitally as well, I'm also going to be speaking to India Today, the network, and those updates will be there for you as well. Well, yes, Nabila, as things stand right now, Novak Djokovic is free to participate in the Australian Open. In fact, the federal court judge has ruled that he be immediately freed from the detention that he is in. He was temporarily taken away from the detention hotel that he was being holed up in for the last 4 days and taken to an unknown location so that he could look at the court proceedings through a virtual meeting that was being conducted. From there, now the judge has ordered that he be immediately removed from that. He's free to roam around in Australia, free to do his practice sessions ahead of the 17th January Australian Open. And the local media there in Australia, just to sum up, I'm just looking at a lot of reactions. They're calling this a sensational overturn of things, because till yesterday, the majority of opinion was that it's going to be very, very tough for Novak Djokovic's team to overturn the decision that the federal government had taken to cancel his visa. However, we did get some sort of indications when we were listening to the court proceedings in the morning session, and a few observations that the judge made did indicate towards Novak Djokovic winning this court battle, in which the judge had said, what more could Novak have done personally? Did he not comply by everything that was told to Cricket Australia? And to which the lawyers answered in the affirmative, saying that yes, he had followed all direction that was given to him. He did whatever was asked of him. He came down to Australia, and that was indication enough that the court battle was heading Novak Djokovic's way. What that means now is that they have to let him go from that facility that he's in. Remember, his lawyer even asked him that let him practice for a bit, because the Australian Open isn't too far away. Opinions have been divided on this. However, what we're getting to here is that the government itself also has a right to appeal, and what we're getting to here is that the government is most likely going to appeal this verdict. However, till such time that that appeal takes place, he is free to be in Australia and practice ahead of that Australian Open. Right. So those were the latest updates. Some of you must have heard me give those updates live on our English news channel, India Today. And this is going to be very, very interesting that, Tennis Australia, the decisions that they had taken. I may have inadvertently said Cricket Australia. Apologies for that. Because as you know, we are dealing with cricket simultaneously, and there was the Ashes series as well as, tennis also happening. But just to sum up what has happened till now, it has been a sensational turn of events in Australia, in Melbourne, simply because. If you remember, Novak Djokovic reached here 4 days ago, and then he was put in a detention facility. The government stance was that he cannot enter Australia because the vaccine exemption that has been given to him on the basis of him having contracted COVID-19 recently in December does not really apply to overseas citizens. They said this sort of an exemption is only given to Australian citizens, and they can avail of this benefit. If you've been infected with COVID-19 in the last 6 months, then you can have an exemption from the vaccine and yet enter the country. For all foreign nationals, the rule was that you can only have the vaccine exemption if there is a underlying medical condition that you may have, maybe a heart related condition or diabetes or something that is very, very dangerous, and by which medical authorities say that you can be exempted of vaccine. If that condition is something that you have, then as a foreign national you will be allowed to enter Australia, and Mr. Novak Djokovic does not fulfill that criteria. That was the stance that the government of Australia had taken. However, the Djokovic team was arguing that, listen, he submitted his application. Tennis Australia had their own medical a setup, and two different committees looked at Novak Djokovic's application. This was set up by Tennis Australia, and after they looked at his application, they allowed him that exemption from vaccination, after which he was given a valid visa. So that is Novak Djokovic's team's argument, that whatever was told to him, he did it. However, now the fight seems to be between Tennis Australia and the government of Australia. Tennis Australia gave that leeway to Novak Djokovic. The medical committee said yes, he can be exempted of vaccination. However, the government of Australia says that a letter was sent to Tennis Australia well in advance, in November, and they were told that all players that are foreign nationals, that are coming from abroad, that are not Australian citizens, the only way they can get vaccine exemption is if they have an underlying medical condition, not on the basis of them having contracted COVID-19 recently. That cannot be there. So the government of Australia is also right in this case. So the main folly or the main mistake, you could say, was probably made by Tennis Australia. But what the court has looked at, that is also not Novak Djokovic's fault. He's traveled here. What was promised to him, he has traveled here. In fact, there was an indication by whatever was said by Novak Djokovic's team and whatever they argued. The judge indicated in the morning session that the verdict might go in Novak Djokovic's favor, because he said that what more could you have expected from Novak Djokovic? Did he comply by everything that was told to him by Tennis Australia? And to which the lawyers answered in the affirmative. So that was an indication that most likely Novak Djokovic will win this court battle. And that's exactly what happened in the post-lunch session. When the judge comes in, he announces that he is free to play in the Australian Open. Everything that was asked of him, he's done that. However, now the background to this is very interesting. You got to understand why people were up in arms. Yes, there are a few people who are supporting Novak Djokovic at the moment, but most of them are, Australians who have some sort of parentage or lineage from Eastern Europe, from Serbia, from Croatia, from that part of the world, and now they are Australian. So they are now camping outside the hotel that Novak Djokovic was in, supporting Novak Djokovic. But majority of Australians have been in favor of what the government is saying. They are saying that we have had to go through very, very tough times during the coronavirus. The lockdown has been very strict. The government has been very strict in ensuring that everyone vaccinates themselves. There were a lot of Australians who were hesitant to take the vaccine, but the laws were in place, and there were so many sanctions against people who were not ready to take vaccination, as in terms of where they go, where they can't go, how much they can travel, that they ensured that most Australians do get vaccinated. The result has been that 90% of Australian adults have now been doubly vaccinated. Now, those people that were not forced, but those who were against vaccination or were hesitant to take vaccination had to go ahead and take that vaccination. Now they're feeling wrong. They're saying, if you had rules like that for us, how is it that someone from the outside can enter the country without being vaccinated? The things that made it worse for Novak Djokovic was the fact that all throughout Novak Djokovic had shown an anti-vaccination stance, whether it was his Facebook chat that he had in 2020 with fellow tennis players, whether it was the Adria Tour that he organized, which was a tennis tournament he organized by himself, where during the peak of that first wave of coronavirus, he ensured that fans were coming into the stadium. He had a major party as well, in which a lot of tennis players participated. After that, a lot of them tested positive. So these sort of things came to light. He himself had tested positive as well. So people thought that he is being very casual towards the coronavirus, and also being very hesitant to take the vaccination. And him being a role model, a superstar the world over, the kind of things he says does send a message out to people at large, and then people tend to follow their heroes. So most people, even the neutrals, felt that he was setting a wrong example. And now, if you are going to allow him with this vaccine exemption to travel borders or to reach somewhere, now a lot of people who are not keen on taking vaccination will say that you need to do the same with us. Today, if you and I, who are normal people, have to travel somewhere, we have to produce our vaccination certificate. We're not given visas if you're not vaccinated. Even if you've had some sort of conditions, you have to apply multiple applications. You're not allowed. The other questions are going to be asked about other players. If you remember, there was a double specialist player from Czech Republic, if I'm not mistaken. She, in fact, had reached Australia, had even got the visa, and she's now been sent back to her country, saying that, because she's not vaccinated, and she also had valid reasons. And then she went back. What about those players? There was a junior player from India who wanted to participate in the Junior Australian Open. He wanted to go there, and because vaccination in India hadn't started for adults below 18, his father had sent an application saying that the vaccination hasn't started in our country for people below 18, so please consider a request. That was also denied. So now you are having different strokes for different folks, and that is what is going to be now questioned by most people, that how can you allow, yes, Novak Djokovic is a world number one player, but how can you have different rules for him? And that's going to be a major area of concern. Remember, you had Rafael Nadal also. He came out and said that, listen, the world has suffered enough. People need to take vaccination. The right message needs to go out. And in this case, with Novak Djokovic being hesitant about vaccination, the right message is not going out. But if you look at the case, I think when you look at now, these are emotions and perspective and different sides that you and I might take when we look at a scenario. But the court only looks at facts. There are no biases there. When the judge looks at a case, it's only going to look at facts. And I think the facts that the judge looked at, that Tennis Australia asked him to do XYZ thing, that's Novak Djokovic, and he complied. He did those XYZ things and sent his application out. Once that application was sent out, um, he was given the valid visa and he came here. Now, how can you put him in detention? Whatever you asked of him, he did. The fight now is between the government of Australia and Tennis Australia because of the miscommunication. And I think the court is going to say, you sort that out at your end. Why must Novak Djokovic pay a price for this? And I think that's the court's view. That may not be your view, may not be my view. If you ask my personal opinion, I'd say that rule have to be same for everyone. As a sport fan, I definitely say that, to have Novak Djokovic only adds to the charm of the Australian Open. He is the best player on the planet, no doubt about it. And when he plays, it only makes the sport better, richer, a better spectacle to watch. However, rules are rules, no matter what you are, and that sort of a message needs to be sent across in society in general, and that may not be happening at the moment. A lot of people here are saying that, listen, we are even ready to take the booster dose, and here you have a gentleman who's not even taken his vaccination. Now, that was the other interesting bit. On Saturday, when he submitted Novak Djokovic's papers, two things we got to know for the first time. One thing that we learned for the very first time is that what was Novak Djokovic's vaccination status. Remember, before this, we knew that he had an anti-vaccination stance, but we did not know whether he's taken the vaccination or not because he hadn't revealed his vaccination status. On the papers that was submitted on Saturday to court, his legal team put it on paper saying that he's not been vaccinated. So that's the first thing we learned about his vaccination stance. The other thing we got to learn was that the reason he applied for the exemption is because he had contracted COVID and the result had come positive on 16th of December. And 6 months after you contract COVID, you're allowed vaccine exemption. But the question here is, he may have contracted, coronavirus in December, but he could have taken the vaccination much earlier. Vaccination has been there for a year before that. Why did he not take the vaccination at that time? Secondly, many people are pointing out is that when you saw that 16th, if he tested positive, there are a lot of Twitter feed, social media feed, where Novak Djokovic is attending a public function on the 17th of December, a day after he's tested positive, according to the affidavit submitted by his lawyer. Then if he had tested positive, how was he out in those public functions a day later? Now, that is a thing a lot of people are questioning, whether that it is genuine, his COVID certificate, or whether he had indeed tested positive, but yet he was still out in public, and in which case that was irresponsible of him for having done that. These are questions that are going to be raised. But the latest is also that the Australian government is not giving up on their fight. What we're getting to hear from various sources is that the government is going to appeal this verdict of the federal court. They are not happy. They think that the rules were made very, very clear. The rules for foreign nationals are different. And having COVID in the last 6 months does not allow them vaccine exemption. That's only for Australian nationals returning from abroad. So on that ground, they are going to appeal against this case. The government is also pointing out that they had told Tennis Australia well in advance that players coming from outside cannot get vaccine exemption if they've tested positive in the last 6 months. So the government's case is also strong, and they're within their rights to appeal. And what we're getting to here is that the government will appeal. But what happens right now is that Novak Djokovic was in a undisclosed location. He was taken from that detention hotel during the hearing to an undisclosed location from where he could watch the court proceedings online. And from there, now he's allowed and he's free. He can enter Australia, head to the hotel that he wants to stay in, whichever hotel, not necessarily the detention hotel. And after that, also practice on courts. Remember, this is another appeal that his team had said that even while the court hearing is on, let him just go and practice because the tournament is not too far away, starts on the 17th of December, to which also now he's free to do anything that he wants. The court hearing can continue, the appeal can continue, but for Novak Djokovic, he can now start concentrating on the Australian Open. And all of this, I was wondering, I wouldn't want to be the first opponent that Novak Djokovic faces in the Australian Open. Novak Djokovic, he's a fighter, and especially now that the ordeal he's gone through, he's going to be deadly in the tournament. He was anyway going to be favorite, but after a situation like this, I think he becomes even more favorite to win. And all the anger that may have been bottled up inside him, all of that you reckon could come out on that first opponent that he faces in round one of the Australian Open? I wouldn't want to be that guy, and I'm sure no other player would want to be that guy. So it's going to be interesting. The good news for tennis fans is that he is there. He is going to be playing the Australian Open. Those are the latest updates that we've got for you. And before I wrap up, just to sum up the entire thing again, is that Novak Djokovic has won that court battle that was in federal court versus Australian government, which had cancelled his visa. He's won the court battle. He's now free to enter Australia. The judge took the view that because he had followed all procedures that were asked of him by Tennis Australia, it's not his fault, and he's done all of that correctly, and he's landed in this country. And so he is free to play. Nick Arce, he still can be deported. The immigration minister still can cancel his visa and deport him. If that does happen, he is banned from entering Australia for 3 years. That's absolutely correct. You can do that, and that's the prerogative of the visa officer. However, now that the court has stepped in, I think the court verdict will supersede what the visa officer has to say, and you'll have to follow the court directives, because now it went to the court, and the federal judge's verdict is going to supersede what the visa officer does. However, the only other course that or recourse for the Australian government is now you could appeal that verdict. You'll have to go back to the federal court. You can appeal it, and of course that verdict can be overturned by another judge. That is quite possible. Something that we've seen in various other cases as well previously. So that can happen. But at the moment, I don't think a visa officer or the visa department can stop him from entering the country, because he's won a legal battle. Sharad Shukla says he's a fighter, but his attitude and stance on vaccine is a bad advertisement for the pandemic. I couldn't agree more with you, Sharad. I mean, and that's the criticism that is coming Novak Djokovic's way, that he's a role model. He is a superstar. And if he is going to firstly have that anti-vaccination stance, which he's very open about, fair enough. I mean, he's allowed to make decisions for his own personal body. All of us are. But there are a lot of rules in place, not just in Australia, in India, or wherever else you're staying in the world. There are rules in place, and all of us have to comply by this, because we can't travel. I mean, if you have to take a foreign flight today, when you have to enter public areas, everywhere a vaccination certificate is needed. When you're traveling internally inside the country, also all of this is needed. If you don't have that, there are no exemptions unless you have a certificate by the doctor that you have an underlying medical condition or things like that, which Novak doesn't at the moment. So the way he's got his exemption saying that he contracted COVID, that's not, according to Australian laws, valid for a foreign national. It's valid for an Australian citizen, but not for a foreign national. And Novak Djokovic, being a foreign national in Australia, I mean, rules have to apply to him. But I guess the court has, as I mentioned earlier, they've looked at it differently, and sometimes court looks at just facts, and the judge did look at the facts, and in his opinion, Novak complied by whatever he was asked of. Yamini Pandey says Medvedev will win. And please get a Tokyo video experience. Yes, I'll tell Rahul to do that video as well. Medvedev, yes, he's going to be a very, very strong contender. Berrettini as well, I think a dark horse. He loves these courts. He's a good player on that. So those are dark horses. You have Rafael Nadal back. I don't think he'll go in as the favorite, because he's coming back after a big injury, so he doesn't become a favorite. But even if Nadal had to win the Australian Open, that wouldn't be a surprise, considering his pedigree and the performances in the past, and having won 20 slams himself. So that's not going to be a surprise. But I think now Novak's going to be unstoppable. If even the appeal is turned down by the courts, which I'm sure the Australian government, what I'm getting to here, is going to appeal this verdict. If that is also turned down, and Novak Djokovic is indeed playing come the 17th of January, he is indeed playing in the Australian Open, nobody would want to be against him. We know what a fighter he is. And when he's pushed against the wall, when odds are stacked against him, as it's happened in this case, he comes out even more stronger and more fiery. So he immediately becomes a big favorite. Only Indian says a big shout out. Hi, Only Indian. Lovely to have you here. Mr. Engineer, a lot of you are asking about Virat Kohli's press conference. No update on that front as well, sir. We don't have an update on the press conference. Usually we get to know a day in advance. We haven't got any update in terms of press conference. So likely that there may not be a press conference. Having said that, uh, we'll keep you updated on sports today if the Indian team press conference does take place. Um, so that is that at the moment. Do join us through the day on sports today. If we get any update on the Novak Djokovic saga, we'll definitely tell you. Also, very excited. It's the eve of another very important test match that's going to be played in Cape Town. I'll be in office. Rahul will be there with me, and we'll do all the update. We have the 9 p.m. dugout where we discuss the game that's going to be coming up, and I'll be joined by my colleague Rahul and Vikrant, where we build up and we'll talk about the playing 11 and who needs to come in, who goes out, Siraj's injury, Virat Kohli, how good he's looking in the net, is he fit enough to play the Cape Town Test match. By that time, we'll also know if there's a press conference that's happened or not. So all of that will be given to you. At the moment, what I can definitely tell you in terms of Virat Kohli is that the what we're getting to hear is that he's fit. He's practicing in the net. I think the all indication is that he is good to go, and he is going to be playing that Cape Town Test match. From the report from Cape Town, he's been batting well in the nets as well. So that upper back spasm that he had for the previous Test match, that I think seems to have gone out of the window. Yeah, so that is that. Yes. Oh, sorry. There is an update, and I missed that. There is a press conference, and it is going to be Virat Kohli. So that's going to be around 3:30 p.m. in about 3 hours from now. So that's the latest update. Yeah, I just checked my message and got the message from the BCCI. 3 hours from now, there is going to be a press conference. Virat Kohli is going to be there, and so that's the other big news that I can give you. That Virat is coming there now. Puts all doubts to rest, which means that he's definitely going to be playing this test match, and he's going to be coming for that press conference in exactly 3 hours from now. After that press conference is over, we'll come live and discuss all of that here on Sports Today. So that's that from now. That was the latest update on Novak Djokovic. Thanks so much for all of you who joined us live. Just a reminder, in 3 hours from now, Virat Kohli press conference. We'll come right after that and discuss in detail everything that he mentioned. And of course, 9 p.m. we'll do the big build-up. It's a dugout evening 9 o'clock show, which has received a lot of love from you guys, all of you who join us. And it's been getting a lot of hits on digital media. So do subscribe to Sports Today for all the latest updates from the world of sports. I hope you have a good Monday morning. It's a good first working day. We've started early with this latest updates. I'm sure you will have a lot to do on the first day of the week, catch up with everything that was left behind or that was pending over the weekend. But press that bell icon. That's when you get to know every time we come up with the latest updates. Press the bell icon, and then we'll be live through the day. Lots of love from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Says love Rami, love Gujarat, love the food there. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us and sending your love. Yamini says, sir, please do a regular Q&A in the afternoon. I will try and do it. In fact, I try and do the Q&A today. We'll do the Q&A. We'll combine it with the press conference that happens of Virat Kohli. After that, the live that we do, we'll do a lot of Q&A as well. See you. Take care. Bye-bye.